What's up? Jeff from RetroArcadeGaming.com, that's all one word, with another edition of Port Battles. In this series, we take a look at a specific classic arcade game and see how well or poorly it's been ported to various home console and computer systems over the years. Up this week, a classic from 1982, Dig Dug. Dig Dug was developed by Namco and released by them in Japan. In the US and Europe, it was released by Atari. You play as Dig Dug, and your goal is to eliminate the Pukas and Figars by exploding them with your pump. The Figars breathe fire when their wings flash, and the Pukas wear goggles because they can. The dirt is color-coded, and the further down you are, the more points you are awarded for exploding an enemy. Figars are worth double points if you explode them horizontally instead of from above or below. Big points are awarded for dropping rocks on the enemies, especially groups of enemies. After 2 rock drops, a bonus item appears for a period of time in the center of the screen. The bonus items include the carrot at 400 points, up to the pineapple at 8,000 points. When only a single enemy remains on the screen, it will attempt to escape to the surface and exit out the left side of the screen. Dig Dug actually has a pretty special place for me because it was the first arcade game in my collection that I actually purchased. My first game, Amiga Race, was acquired from a coworker at no cost. When I picked up Dig Dug from the seller, it looked like it had a 6-pack a day smoking habit. The side art was yellow with nicotine stains. Big chunks of wood were missing from the cabinet corners. Over about a 6-month period, I slowly restored the cabinet to almost brand new condition. I used to have a blog where I chronicled my arcade restorations, but then I realized I only did about one every 5 years, so it didn't really work out too well. Maybe I'll make a post on the website detailing some of the restoration I did on the Dig Dug cabinet. Because I don't have a suitable means for capturing actual arcade gameplay from the cabinet, let's take a look at the original arcade version of Dig Dug via MAME. Buckle in. It's going to be an adventurous ride as we take a look at least 37, yes, I said 37, Dig Dug ports and clones. Because we have so many ports, I'm going to try to keep my comments on each release as brief as I can to try to avoid a 2-hour video. Up first, the Atari 2600 port, which was released by Atari in 1983. On its surface, it looks pretty bad, but it sounds decent. The rocks are square, the dirt is line segments that run across the screen, and the characters lack detail, but at least they're distinguishable from one another. The game actually plays pretty well, and if you're not concerned with visual presentation, it's a nice play on the 2600. Up next, the Sword M5 port, released by Takura in 1982. Again, this is another decent port that looks a bit crude, but actually plays and sounds pretty well. Really, the only negative about this port is the limited color palette. The Atari 8-bit lineup got 2 Dig Dug releases, both by Atari. The original release was from 1982, and then a second release came in 1983, which was a port of the 5200 version. I kind of like the visuals on the original 82 release a bit better, although the Figars look more like crocodiles than dragons. There's some odd color choices, and the rocks leave a bit to be desired. Have a look for yourself at the original 82 release. The 1983 8-bit release has a bit more detail and makes better use of the color palette. Like most of these ports, it plays like Dig Dug should, and it's fun and challenging. Naturally, the Atari 5200 port looks just like the 8-bit port because the port was a clone of this one. Again, it sounds pretty good, plays like you would expect Dig Dug to play. The MS-DOS port was released by AtariSoft in 1983. It's a 4-color CGA title, so it's not real colorful, and the sounds, again, emit from the PC speaker. It's ugly, but it does play as you would expect it to play. Back in 83, if you had a PC, it was probably awesome. Dig Dug for the Texas Instruments TI-99 4A was another Atari Soft release from 1983. It's the most colorful release we've looked at so far, and sounds decent, but the enemy character models are pretty bad. Again, it plays just like you'd expect Dig Dug to play, so from a gameplay perspective, it's not too bad. The VIC-20 got an Atari Soft port in 1983. It sounds good. The graphics are limited, which is pretty much what you'd expect from a VIC-20 title. This one plays pretty well, though. All of these ports are going to play very similar to the actual arcade game play of Dig Dug. They just look and sound a bit differently. The NEC PC-8001 got a release from DEMPA in 1983. This one's not bad. It has pretty decent character models and color, and while it doesn't sound perfect, it sounds pretty good considering it was designed for a PC speaker. It's not a bad port for the NEC PC-8001. The NEC PC-88 got two releases, both from DEMPA. The latter was optimized for the model featuring V2 mode. Up first, the non-optimized version, released in 1983, which looks pretty darn good. but it doesn't sound so good. Next, the optimized version, released for the SR model and above in 1985, again by DIMPA. This one looks great, sounds pretty good. It does seem to play a bit sluggish. That may be an emulator issue, though, and not necessarily an issue with the port itself. The Sharp X1 version was released by DIMPA in 1983, and it looks pretty similar to the PC 6001 version, but actually has better sounds. The Commodore 64 port was released by Atari Soft in 1983. This one sounds great. It looks pretty good, if not great. I don't know. To me, it doesn't look all that good, but in hindsight, I guess it's really not too bad. There's some minor hit detection issues, but again, it plays like you'd expect Dig Dug to play on the Commodore 64. The MSX port was released by Namco themselves in 1984. Again, this one sounds very good, but it kind of goes back to some rudimentary graphics compared to the last few ports we've looked at. Again, that's more of a platform issue than a port issue. It's due to the limitations of the platform more than anything else. Again, it plays well and it's fun to play. The Fujitsu FM-7 port was released by DIMPA in 1984. Again, this one looks pretty similar to the PC-6001 port and the Sharp X1 port. It sounds pretty good, but it's not quite there graphically. It looks good, just not great. The TRS-80 color computer did not get an official port, but instead got the Pumpman clone, released by Seguro Software in 1984. I'm fairly new to the TRS-80 Coco. Don't know a whole lot about it. I was a Commodore 64 guy back in the day. So I spent part of last Saturday getting educated on the TRS-80 by some guys who know the platform very well. I'm going to put down in the description a link to the Coco Talk broadcast, which is done each Saturday afternoon, and also to Curtis Boyle's list of TRS-80 official ports and clones. Those guys are a wealth of information, obviously know the platform very well, and I appreciate them helping me out and bringing this newbie on the Coco up to speed. This clone is decent. It's not great. It lacks background music. Seems to play a bit slow, specifically in the vertical movement. The horizontal movement seems okay. It's just when you're going up and down. It does look and play like Dig Dug, though. If you had a Coco and you wanted to play Dig Dug, this was about your only option. The Apple II port, again, an Atari soft release from 1984. is not real colorful and doesn't sound real good. It does the best it can with what it's given and does at least resemble Dig Dug. It's not a great port, but if you had a Apple II in '84, it was probably pretty awesome. Namco released Dig Dug in Japan only in 1985 for the Nintendo Famicom. So it's a Famicom only title and was not an NES or US release. This one sounds great, looks great, has a little shorter play field to accommodate the 4:3 resolution of the television, and that takes a little bit of getting used to. It makes it feel just a bit out of place. Intellivision developed their own Dig Dug port in-house and released it what I would consider rather late in the game in 1987. The graphics are fairly crude, but it does sound decent. For the Intellivision, it's a decent port. It probably would have been an even better Intellivision port had it been released in about '83 or '84. The Atari 7800 port was released by Atari in '87. Sounds pretty good. It has a bit of a dark tone to it that I'm not the biggest fan of. I wish it was a bit brighter. Other than that, it plays solidly and it's a pretty good Dig Dug replication. The Game Boy got a port in 1992. It sounds pretty good, has decent detail, but obviously, it's the Game Boy, it's a scroller. And if you know from my previous videos, I'm not a huge fan of scrollers, but really there wasn't a whole lot of choice with this one. This is really the only way the game would have been playable and probably recognizable. If you don't mind that it scrolls, it actually plays fairly well. I just personally happen to like being able to see everything that's happening on the playfield at the same time. The Amiga got a clone in 1994 entitled Digger, not to be confused with the similarly titled game for the Amiga entitled Diggers with an S. There is also a clone entitled Dugger. They're pretty ingenious with the names of these clones, aren't they? I've opted not to include Dugger. I believe Digger tries to replicate the look and feel of the original arcade game a little better than Dugger. Dugger has an entirely different graphics set. Digger was a freeware release by Justin Leak. This one sounds okay, looks okay, although Dig Dug has been replaced with what I can only assume is Digger. He's got more of a man-like appearance and seems to be carrying like a bicycle pump or something that's more defined than it is in the actual arcade game. Similar to the Coco clone we looked at, if you had an Amiga and wanted to play Dig Dug, Digger was one of the few options available to you. So we've reached the point where, from this point forward, most of the ports will become pretty indistinguishable. They all replicate the actual arcade game and sounds fairly well, so we'll move through them fairly quickly. Up first, the Sharp X68000 release by Dimpa in 1995. This one actually surprised me. I wasn't quite expecting this. It looks and sounds just like the actual arcade game. It does play a bit fast, but it's not too much to be a distraction. This is actually an awesome port for the X68000. Namco released Namco Museum 64 to the Nintendo 64 in 1999. This compilation featured Pac-Man, Miss Pac-Man, Galaga, Galaxian, Pole Position, and Dig Dug. Sounds great, looks great, but it is a scroller. You know my opinion on that. The Dreamcast got the Namco Museum compilation featuring the same titles as the Nintendo 64. Released in 1999 as well, it's obviously another Namco release. Again, it looks great, sounds great, scrolls up and down. Namco Museum Volume 3 was released for the PlayStation in 2000 and features Tower of Druaga, Galaxian, Fozon, Miss Pac-Man, Pole Position 2, and Dig Dug. Scrolls up and down, but that's about the only minor complaint in this one. The GameCube, PlayStation 2, Xbox, and Windows PCs got a 12-game Namco Museum compilation, and also a Namco Museum 50th Anniversary compilation. First, we'll look at the plain old Namco Museum compilation on the GameCube, released in 2000. Like the previous compilation titles, this one scrolls vertically. Next, the 16-game 50th Anniversary compilation. We'll look at this one on the PS2, but also available on the Xbox, GameCube, and Windows PCs. This one's from 2005. Finally, this one doesn't scroll, and the entire playfield is visible at once. Hallelujah! The Game Boy Advance got a 6-title Namco Museum and a Namco Museum 50th Anniversary release. The 50th Anniversary release is a bit watered down and only featured 5 titles: Pac-Man, Miss Pac-Man, Galaga, Dig Dug, and Bosconian. Up first, we'll look at the Namco Museum release from 2001. This one scrolls from top to bottom, more than the other Namco Museum releases. Pretty much expected, however, with the smaller screen on the Game Boy Advance. The 50th anniversary release for the Advance does not scroll, but features a somewhat shorter playfield. I prefer seeing the entire playfield, but this one just doesn't feel right. It feels kind of out of place. It's not bad by any means, it just doesn't have that authentic arcade gameplay feel to me. Next, we're going to take a look at the Namco Museum Battle Collection for the PlayStation Portable. The sound's messed up in this one, but you'll get a pretty good idea of how it looks. It plays great on the actual hardware. For some reason, I don't know if I ripped it poorly or what. It just doesn't sound right. It features 16 titles and 4 arranged titles. As a bonus, this one doesn't scroll. And just for kicks, here's a look at Dig Dug rearranged from that same PlayStation Portable compilation. For some reason, I don't know why, the sound on this one is just fine. Next, a port from the Xbox Live Arcade for the Xbox 360. And this one's also compatible with the Xbox One. This was released in 2006. It plays spot on, just like you'd expect it to play. The Windows PC Steam version is sold individually as part of the arcade game series, which you can also purchase as a 3-pack with Pac-Man and Galaga. For the individual game, I think it's $3.99. For the 3-pack, I think it was $8.99. Anyway, it's a pretty good buy if you're interested in all 3 titles. It was released in 2016. Again, gameplay is spot on. That same arcade game series that was available on Steam is also available for the PlayStation 4. And again, cost of an individual game is $3.99. You did have the option, like Steam, to purchase the title individually or as part of the 3-game pack. Plays great. Plays as you would expect it to play. Picked this one up just a few weeks ago when we did our Galaga battle. This is the Namco Museum Arcade Pack for the Nintendo Switch, which features Dig Dug in both normal and challenge modes, along with a number of other Namco titles. This one also features the Pac-Man Championship Edition +2, which is pretty fun to play if you have friends, but who the hell's got time for that? Finally, an Atari soft prototype exists for the ColecoVision that was never released. It appears fairly complete, but probably could have used some additional tweaking before a final release. For starters, there's no background music during gameplay, but it is present at the start of the levels. The colors also seem a bit muted to me and probably weren't fully fleshed out. More than likely, I would guess this was a victim of the Great Game Crash that was slated to be released, and then they just all kind of said, screw it. That wraps it up. I included as much as I could. We did leave out a few titles. There's Namco Museum versions for the Wii and the Wii U. I was certain that I had a copy for one of the systems, but I couldn't find it anywhere. The Famicom port is available via the Nintendo eShop on the Wii U. It was also available on the Wii, but that shop's closed down now. There's a mobile phone Java version. We looked at the Popeye mobile phone Java version. There's a mobile phone version floating around entitled Dig Dug Deluxe. I couldn't get it to work. The Atari ST got a clone that was based off the Famicom port. I almost think it's a NES emulator that I saw running on the Atari ST. I may be mistaken on that, though. There are ports for Windows 3.1 and the Casio PV-1000. I don't even know what the hell a Casio PV-1000 is. I knew Casio made musical keyboards. It's not a complete look at Dig Dug ports, but it's pretty damn close. All of the compilation titles look great, as does the Sharp X6000 port. That one really surprised me. Fortunately, some of the older ports look bad or sound bad, or they look and sound bad, but they all actually capture the spirit of Dig Dug gameplay very well. There's not one of these that you're going to pick up and start playing and say, what game am I playing? You're going to know instantly playing any of them that you're playing Dig Dug. They're all well done in that respect. That's it for now. We'll see you next time. Until then, happy gaming. Peace.